turning the recorder on. It is 4:04 p.m. This is the Blufftown Council regular meeting. Roll call.
Linda Sosa. Jennifer Davila. Oh, sorry.
Britt Hornsby.
Ann Leffernan.
Erin Nelson, serving as town manager.
So the first thing is the approval of the Blufftown Council regular meeting minutes of April 23rd, 2024. Has everybody read them? And are there any changes, corrections, additions?
I motion to accept the minutes as presented for the work session from May 2nd.
Okay, so this is April, did I say April 23rd?
No, that's probably my fault. April 23rd.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Now we'll move to the approval of the Blufftown Council work session minutes of May 2nd, 2024 rather. Has everybody received them? Have you read them? Are there any changes or modifications?
All right, I motion to approve the work session minutes from May 2nd, 2024.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who seconded?
Lou.
Oh, okay. Couldn't hear.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Public comment, there will be a 3-minute time limit for any person wishing to make public comment. If you exceed the 3-minute time limit, the meeting controller will mute you. Prior to the meeting, you should put your name in the chat box or raise the hand icon. And if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to make a public comment.
All right, I'm currently not showing anyone online. I did just open up for messages, but Alma Tume would like to make a public comment. Let's grab that microphone, please.
I'm gonna move this over this way.
I don't know if you guys got the feedback from the attorney about the sign ordinance. My feedback is about jurisdiction, and if the town of Bluff has jurisdiction over the highway right-of-way. When I got the permit for my billboard, I had the gentleman from UDOT that's in charge of all outdoor advertising on the phone, and I asked him about different, whether I can put a sign in the highway right-of-way, a sandwich sign, a feather flag, if I can put a leach field, if I can put, and the answer to all of that was no. And I knew the answer to all of that. I just wanted to see, to make sure that, whether it's true or not. The town of Bluff can grant a sign. Let's say a business in town wants to have a big sign on their property. It has to be within your surveyed boundary line. But if half of the sign sticks over the UDOT right-of-way, they don't allow that. That's illegal. So the whole sign needs to be on your property. And so the concern that I have with the changes, unless things change dramatically, is we're trying to legislate things that are not within our jurisdiction, unless UDOT permits the town, to have jurisdiction over, the town limit of Bluff. But anyway, according to UDOT, that's not the case.
Thank you. Anyone come online
I'm not seeing anyone with a raised hand or who has indicated in the chat box, so I think that concludes the comment.
Okay, so we're going to move to number 1, which is the sign ordinance that we talked about in the work session. which has been reviewed by Chris McEnany. Does everyone have the one from the packet? I'll ask it a different way. Is there anyone who doesn't have it? So the changes that we talked about last week were all made in this document. I double-checked my notes. Does anybody see anything that isn't covered or changed in this copy?
I think it looks pretty good. And just to take Comer's comment into, I think that we've addressed that in our revisions, that we can't, that signs can't be put in the road right of way.
And that's been in our, that was in our initial zoning as well.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable with our attorney's opinion that this is sufficient. And I'm trying to think back, and my memory could be wrong, but I can't recall anyone that we've contacted about a sign where it's in the right-of-way. It's always been on property, I believe. But,
There were businesses contacted who had temporary signs in the rights of way, and they were just informed of the right of way and where it was located.
The trailer park, I don't remember what the issue was, but Cadillac Ranch.
oh, that was getting the transfer of the ownership.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from the previous owner to the current owners. And there was some paperwork we had to do with approving it through UDOT. Is everybody comfortable with this one?
Yes.
Motion to approve the sign ordinance.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then we'll move to number 2.
We'd just like to say I appreciate everybody's work on it.
Yeah, definitely. It was, yeah.
Some good compromises and things.
I'm sure this rattling is not helping the audio, so. All right, number 2 is to discuss and vote on the revised Bluff Community Center and Fire Mesa kitchen contracts and the implementation protocol.
The only question that I have on this is just right at the top. I thought that we had agreed to just charge one monthly rate
Which one are you
or
talking?
hourly rate for the Fire Mesa kitchen rental. We still have that table with the annual membership fee with the up to 10 hours, up to 20 hours, up to 40 hours, up to 60 hours. I thought that we had just decided that one hourly rate would be charged and then billed at the end of the month. It's this one. I don't know what page it was because my printer kind of got all wonky on me and set papers flying everywhere.
I'm fine with that.
I just thought that made it simpler for bookkeeping, was that if we just had one flat monthly, I was trying to find what we had agreed on was the hourly rate.
It was $7 an hour.
$7 an hour.
$7 an hour and then
Billable
pay
at the end of the month.
And you had mentioned a time clock or something,
Right.
so you didn't have to keep track, but they would keep track and then pay at the end of the month.
Mhm.
instead of this one, when we talked about it before, it was more of a walk-in, punch your card when you walk in and get your coffee or get your yoga session or something, and this is more of a, I used it this many times and then pay at the end after you've used it, but I think we could have.
I think the purpose of this was, at one point, it was a pay at the beginning of the month.
Right.
And you chose your package, and, but yeah, it also says pay the first Tuesday, I think, of the next month now.
Yeah, so if we can amend that to make that say that, I would
Okay, say what, just say what?
the membership package, would be an hourly rate of $7 per hour, tabulated and paid at the end of the month, by the 5th of the following month.
Is everybody okay with that, $7 an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Pay at the end of the month.
Or pay at the,
Yeah.
if it, yeah.
By
if
the
we-
5th of the following, because they need to use it through the month and then tally it up and then
Okay.
pay.
So it's due by the 5th day of the following month.
That's, I think, would be sufficient.
So I had a couple of other corrections. On the last bullet point, on the first page for Fire Mesa Kitchen, and I've got this question,
And I'm so sorry to interrupt. So the community center manager just emailed me, and I'm not sure what made it into the packet was the final membership recommendation, because it does not have the table in it.
no, and I double checked it today, what, the
Oh.
table was in the packet that we.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I just printed off the one that was sent, so maybe we're,
Okay, so why don't we do this?
well, Erin, can you send us the updated one right now? We all have our computers out.
I can share it on my screen too.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, to show the, what was the,
Yeah, I thought some of these had been made, but then when I double checked today, I went back through the packet and thought, well, I must have just imagined it. It's not a big deal.
Are you able, I'll try to make this as large as humanly possible.
Okay, so we're all on the same page, we're on the Fire Mesa Kitchen contract. And Erin's showing it on the screen. Okay, so on the first paragraph, it reads, pay on the first day of the following month. Should we change it to the 5th day or leave it the first day?
I'd say the 5th, so that they have time to do the bookkeeping and get a check out. Otherwise, they're paying on what they think they might use those last few days. So, and that's in the first paragraph too. Erin.
Thank you, Malia.
And then,
Up in the first, it said, the last sentence there says first day too.
where are you seeing this?
On that, you were just
Under
about there.
usage
Just on it.
rates, the
It's in-
last sentence.
Thank you.
Okay, then go to user prerequisites. That first one with the general liability should, I think should come out because we clarified 2 years ago that
We
the
don't
community
need it.
center's covered, the kitchen's covered by our liability, and what we're really asking people to do is to provide coverage that they don't need to have.
Thank you. That was
So
on
we
my
just-
list also. It was like-
Removing the entire first
Mhm.
prerequisite.
Mhm. And that matches with the community center rental, because we don't require it for it,
Right.
so.
Although you're probably more likely to be injured in the kitchen, but we're totally covered, so.
Like
Yeah.
pickleball?
There's a
Roller
lot.
skating?
Roller skating.
Good point. Pickleball, roller skating. Okay, so then the on the paragraph under terms, it's the third bullet point. I'm clarifying the first sentence with Dr. Sanada, Public Health. I think it needs to say the appropriate food service licensing from any Utah Public Health, because we can't require a separate one for every county. And so I think that that's what we have to say, but I texted Dr. Sanada this afternoon.
From a Utah,
From any Utah Public Health Department.
And it had to be in the state, I remember in that conversation before, but I think it still needed to be within the state.
Right, that's why I had it said from any Utah.
Yeah. I was thinking it could be any US, but I think it's just Utah.
No, and, yeah, and how it came up was the folks coming in from Colorado who were bringing food trucks in,
Mhm.
is that they need to have a Utah one as well.
From somebody, but they didn't all have to get it every county they went to.
So, in that usage rate paragraph on the first, can you go back up to that, Erin? Okay, that's fixed. Then, going to the second page of that, I'm assuming that Malia took out, this contract is valid for 1 year unless the renter chooses another membership package, because it references the membership
Mhm.
package right above the, yep, she's just got, this contract is valid for 1 year.
So on this, are we doing the 3-month trial? Like, do we need to work that into this contract?
I don't think so, I think since we're gonna do it quarterly for the first time,
Okay.
and we have one, we
And I-
only have one contract right now to be dealing with.
Okay, and I think that the the membership fee should say non-refundable. So that if they use it a month and then fail, it's non-refundable. If they're not committed to a year, then they shouldn't be a member.
I definitely agree, it should say not refundable. I would like to do it quarterly. There are people, like, let's say teachers that wanna use it for the summer, they don't wanna use it for the whole year. If we have to make refunds, I mean, and it's easier if it's by quarter. We can review,
It's just 4 times the paperwork, 4 times for everybody, for us and for all the users, it's 4 times then if they just, and that's the member, I mean, if they just wanna use it once in a while, they can still do that, but for this membership thing, I think we wanna keep it as simple and tidy as
But-
possible.
yeah, except I'm the one that's doing the paperwork that's suggesting this. I did ask Malia, and, you know, we could change this, if for the very first one, since it's a trial, that we could just do $40 instead of the whole year. But it's actually easier for me to do it quarterly. But at the same time, if we're doing a trial, I'm happy with waiting till the end of the trial to decide. So, I mean, this isn't something that we do right now.
I just think it makes a little more commitment from the members if they just pay it and they're in for the year, and I don't know if we wanna do it from January to January, or, you know, you start your year, that's how the alcohol licenses are and stuff, you start and you pay whatever's left, and then when it's their turn to collect all your stuff, you pay from there, and so people wait till that point, so they don't pay a whole year for a month. But anyway, thanks for adding in the non-refundable.
So just to throw a wrench into this, let's say you're doing it either way, quarterly or annually. It's going to stagger regardless, because if, for instance, Cow Canyon pays their fee and 2 months later another group pays their fee, then you're gonna have these all kind of staggered, whereas with the short-term rentals and the airport lease, we do January to January, or whatever time period, but 1 year.
I would prefer that, and we know everybody's paid, and it's when it starts, and they can rent it just by the day until the time comes to put in a whole year of membership, or whatever, there's still flexibility.
We have somebody who signs up in June or something, is there some reason that we couldn't just prorate okay, you're not signing up, so for the rest of the year, it would be 2 quarters and you need to pay, and then in January renew the 160?
That would be generous.
I mean, that way, like, if you had somebody who started to rent in June, they weren't paying for January through June and not being able to use it.
And
I
you could do
don't know.
that quarterly, like you can either pay the third and fourth quarters, or the second, third, and fourth quarters, but not like down to the day, I would say. Just keep
Mhm.
it to the quarter.
So let's say someone wants to rent it at Christmas and have a big cookie making party. They could still use the traditional one that we've been using. So the
They could just rent it for the
half
day.
day, yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to becoming a member and paying for it by the hour.
So why don't we just start with saying that we'll do the first quarter, see how it is, and then decide if we want to do it annually. Because I can picture that if we really ended up getting a lot of just occasional day use, it's going to get complicated, like Lou said, about tracking. Like who's paid, who hasn't paid, when are they due? So is everyone okay with doing it? Just do it by the first quarter and then we'll review it.
Then when would maybe do June? Because I think it'd be better to keep it in January.
Well, but we could just we could run out the rest of this year just doing the quarters, and then next January, start up with the yearly. If
Yeah,
that
I think
if
that
it
would be
worked
good.
well.
Yeah,
Start with
because then there'd be 2 quarters left if you figured June, July, and August, and April, May,
Yeah.
September, October, November, nobody's, yeah.
I think, yeah.
Rest of the
Let's
year.
just try this quarter and see what happens.
So with that, we would need to amend this agreement to say something about $40 per quarter rather than $160 annual. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, it needs to say non-refundable.
It says that annual membership fee of $160 is required, or put in parentheses, or $40 quarterly to finish the year. I don't know how you would word that, but
Since this is a trial, can we just leave it and in our meeting vote just to do the trial and do $40?
If it's working well, I don't think any of us want to go back and revisit it.
Could we put in parentheses after $160, could we put in parentheses $40 per quarter? Is required. Just in that, that's the only place that occurs, right, is in that first usage rate sentence?
And then at the end of the quarter, we can erase it if we want to.
and, well,
Or
it's part of the,
You
you could put in 2024, it's $40 a quarter.
And then starting January 1st, 2025, it's the full year.
Yeah.
$160 a year.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, I think that sort of says what we're trying to put out there.
Okay, so I'm hearing this correctly, that for fiscal year 2024, am I hearing that correctly, or are you saying calendar year?
Calendar.
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 Yeah, that way they can do the season.
I hate calendar year. Does not align to my budget.
It doesn't, but neither do the airport leases. It'll,
$40.
We could switch it to March, remember, I voted for March.
for, read that, tell me if you want any of that more.
So,
Become a
non-refund-
member and qualify for the the flexibility offered with the membership, a non-refundable annual membership fee of $160, parentheses, $40 quarterly for the 2024 calendar year is required.
I think that's fine.
That works for me.
Because that assumes it by, yeah.
By
And it's, let's see,
2025,
we
we'll-
don't say when it is, though, due January 1st or January 31st or whatever. An annual membership fee of $160 due January 31st.
So we're free January 31st.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we did for the STRs and stuff?
Mhm,
Was January 31st?
mhm.
Okay.
then there's the cleaning contract and the checklist. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Did any of that change from what's in the packet?
I don't think so. I didn't see anything that changed on those.
So then,
And we did add no storage. Is that correct?
I'm
Like,
seeing
so-
that, I think that was on the first or second page. On the second page, number 10.
No storage of kitchenwares, food, dry or cold is permitted, yeah.
Okay.
And then people still have the option of using the half-day, full-day.
Right.
Are we finished with Fire Mesa Kitchen?
well, the storage the storage issue is because other people are using it and keeping people's things from the conflict of my stuff disappeared,
Right.
whatever. It's a shame to have those just sitting there empty, and I don't know if we just leave them cold while they're not in use. And then, you can use them while you're there. The freezer, I don't know how much nightly or, day use people would use the freezer, but they might. The only thing I can think of is like ice and
Ice
ice
cream.
cream, stuff like that, so.
Mhm.
I think it gets really confusing if we say you can leave some things and not
Yeah,
others.
no, I
It
think I
just
like the
goes.
idea of no storage no
It's just-
storage, yeah.
Mhm.
And I'll move my fish out of the freezer.
Don't they freeze in there?
Um,
So on the fire kitchen one, what I didn't see in my packet is how somebody just rents it. In conjunction with the community center, like, is it assumed you get it with the community center? I don't remember that.
no.
So how do you just rent it?
We have, the kitchen's rented 2 times this month, and the application I saw, they did the community center and the kitchen. So they did the 2 applications.
Right, but when we talked about it in our last session, we talked about, doing a combination rental. So if you rent this, you could rent that for a little cheaper rate than if you have to rent this and that separately, 2 different contracts, you could rent it together for a cheaper rate.
I think this is easier, because for one thing, the community center includes cleaning. it's easier to look through the paperwork and see that it's two separate things.
So I'm gonna interrupt for a second. Let's vote on the Fire Mesa Kitchen membership, because otherwise we're gonna go down the same path we went down last time.
Okay, I motion that we adopt the Fire Mesa Kitchen membership rental as presented today.
I second it.
Any further discussion on that? This is on the membership. Then all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then, back to the discussion about the half-day, full-day use of the, well, actually, let me revise that. On the community center rental itself, are we all in agreement that the half-day, full-day rental should stay the same? I'm ignoring the kitchen combo for a minute.
And so what you're saying the same is $60 for a half day and $100 for a full day.
Right, and then the audio would be 35, not 25.
And did it get changed that we agreed to just make one cleaning fee rather than two separate cleaning fees?
Yeah.
That was
Right,
my,
like 50.
yeah.
So if we could approve the community center rental for only the community center,
Not the pavilion,
well, and the pavilion, yeah.
but you can rent the pavilion separately.
Well, you only have to rent the bathroom, and the pavilion, there is no fee. That's what we talked about, no fee for the pavilion. If you needed to use the restrooms, then there was a fee for that.
Yeah, restrooms and dumpsters was 40, is that correct? Because I don't have that in my latest.
That one is correct. Non-refundable.
And the audio, let's see.
And the audio, we talked about putting it $35, raising it from 25 and having, a deposit on the equipment of $100
Cash, yeah.
cash. And then, I think I might have mentioned it, but I had followed up with our insurer, our deductible is $1,000. So that, my idea that we could make it the deductible is not feasible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So are we all in agreement on the community center rental itself? with
So the full
pavilion?
day is $200, and I just said 100. So it's actually on this chart, it shows 200.
So we're charging $125 a half day and $200 a full day. Is that,
Yeah.
Is that, I don't remember that discussion. It seems reasonable, I think it's fine.
then are we ready to approve the contract for the community center and the pavilion?
So the pavilion is $50 because if you want to rent the bathrooms. And how do you reserve it? You just, if you don't rent the bathrooms, or do you have to in order to reserve the pavilion?
So what we talked about is if you're going to do a garage sale or
There's
something that ties it
advertising.
all up, you need to talk to Malia. If we're not talking about the people who have the day use of the lunch, they bring their lunch over there and they sit with their family. We're not talking about trying to track that.
So advertise to the public. So would this fall in the category, if you're having a class over there, that there's no charge if it's advertised to the public?
I don't think anybody wants to charge for a class that lasts an hour, but maybe that's just me.
I think a class isn't necessarily going to use the dumpster. That's what
No,
we're
but they
trying
use
to-
the bathrooms. And so I think it's the same as.
Does
the
Zumba use is the community center open when Zumba, is the bathroom open when Zumba's outside?
Not necessarily, no.
but I think it's, the community center says that you can use for classes for no charge, which would come with the bathroom. So I'm just clarifying that you could do that too with the pavilion and
Yeah.
have a reservation for it.
I agree with that. If it's a class that we wouldn't charge to use inside, I don't know why we would charge to use outside.
And you can book it on the calendar so that you know you get it when you get there or whatever. Okay, then I'm fine with this. But it doesn't, my question is that we can rent the community center and the pavilion together, but we're leaving out the kitchen.
We haven't gone to that part. Trying to get as many of these pushed through, since we have the budget discussions, as many of these pushed through today, whatever, as we can individually.
Well, as long as we don't wanna combine this on this contract. See, it
Not
seems
on
to
this
me like,
contract, no.
it seems like we ought to have another column there, Bluff Community Center, Pavilion, Kitchen, put it all, this all kind of a whole unit.
Have we had people complain about having to rent both the kitchen and the community center at the same time in the past?
In 6 years, I've not heard a single
No.
complaint.
Well, we hardly rent it, that's part of the argument to get it used more. I think having it part of the community center or a cheaper way, like you can rent it, it keeps the food out of here, keeps the drinks and all the food and all that stuff outside more, but, I don't know, I'm just trying to streamline it to where if I was the one coming to rent it, it would all be there, all my options would be lined out, and I could see, you know, if
Well,
if you
what
had a
we
group
have
coming.
online is working. And the people who are renting it, a lot of them are repeats, and then others, people who found out about it through those people, and they're doing really well with the contract that's online, which is, similar, except just a couple things. So I think, if we put too much stuff on it, I think having some of these things separate the way they are right now is easier on people. And it's working. They are working.
So, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve or adopt the community center contract
And that includes the pavilion.
with the pavilion.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think it comes as a unit, so I can't agree that that's simpler.
So all in favor say aye. Aye.
I'm-
Anyone opposed?
No,
So let's, Lou, is there any, go back to the idea of having a combined contract. What would your proposal be?
I would have it to where if I was coming with a group or a party or whatever, I was hosting some public, whatever, some nonprofit, say, or whatever, although I don't really want to either, but I would want to know that, hey, if I'm coming to Bluff and setting this up for my photographers, for my outdoors guys, whatever, that I can rent the kitchen, and I can rent the community center, I can rent the pavilion and the bathroom, or all these combinations, and just put out their choices. And then if you were just gonna rent the fire kitchen, it might be a certain, I don't know, whatever we decided the full day was, I think that's on there already, whatever that is, would be less if you were also renting the community center, because you would have the whole property. You'd have the community center, the fire kitchen, and the pavilion, say, and I could have all of my bicycle riders here, or like the marathon, they would maybe go ahead and rent it. and say, oh, look, we can use the kitchen and provide drinks and things out of here. This can be a aid station as they're coming through. It just seems like a more usable group of buildings, because they're all right here together. So I would just put it as an option. And make it a little cheaper if they're renting all the things together. It's like renting your, whatever, it all comes together. You have a Jeep plus your something else, and it's a little cheaper. If you already rented one, you get a little cheaper discount.
Well, I think I can say with pretty much certainty that during the time that I've been on the council and working with Linda and the Reynolds, now Malia, I've never had anybody ask to do it that way. It seems like, to me, we're trying to fix something that isn't broken at this point. If somebody were to come to Malia, I would hope Malia would say, oh, they want to rent the entire thing, could they get a discount? But I'm not in favor of changing it to have a combination.
How do the people know that it's available?
They go online.
It's pretty I was just on the website looking at it. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that it's available on the website.
I think Malia does a terrific job of giving people their options, all the options, and working with them. So, yeah, if something came up like what you're talking about, she could definitely deal with it and bring it to us.
I mean, on the website, it has the picture of the community center and the pavilion, and then it has Fire Mesa Kitchen. Capacity is 20 people. Shows picture of the outdoor seating area, shows the kitchen. Contracts are both right underneath. I mean, other than if we were gonna give a discount for a whole partial, I mean, because, I mean, I think it's fairly clear here.
At the top, contact us today to reserve the Bluff Community Center,
Right.
Pavilion, or Fire Mesa Kitchen for your
Yeah.
next gathering.
And you're under resident resources or
No,
It's under
facilities?
facilities and
parks.
Okay. Maybe we ought to change that capacity under Fire Mesa, because that's like just an internal capacity. It's not like limiting your group to 20.
So,
I think I'm going off of the fire marshals.
It's the inside,
Yeah.
yeah, inside capacity 20. But if they're
Change that.
cooking in it and doing, having a party outside, they're not limited to 20 participants.
You could
Yeah,
just
the
put-
pictures, this all looks nice, so that's,
You could just put in parentheses, 20 people inside kitchen.
isn't it already posted,
Yeah,
the capacity?
yeah,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was,
So,
was there anything else that we had to vote on that's kitchen or community center related?
so the
not
other
unless
one's
somebody
staying?
not unless somebody wants to make a motion about something.
But did anything change on the contract that we have for Fire Mesa?
Not that I know of.
Just renting the kitchen?
Yeah, it already has a standard cleaning fee for both full and partial day rentals. It already has,
And unless I'm confused, did we vote on that, on Fire Mesa Kitchen?
Well, it isn't
It hasn't
anything on
changed.
anything current, so it hasn't changed.
unless it changed in the last 2 weeks I'm reading the contract on the Town of Bluff site right now, but yes.
So, in terms of the rentals, are there any more motions that people want to make? Okay, because we've got to go through the budget.
Legally required to by the state of Utah, actually.
Correct. Yeah. On or before the 7th day of the month.
Oh, guess what today is?
Yeah. Or your first meeting of the month. So if we didn't meet only once a month, we wouldn't have to do it until then, but tonight, or today, we are required to go through it. So are we done with 1 and 2 at this point? Okay, then I'm going to have us skip down to number 5 and 6, because those by law have to be addressed.
Would it be possible just to move number 3 to a work session?
I'm gonna take it off the
Okay.
agenda for this week and put it
Okay.
on for the last week, because we had a update from Steve Helgerson about 2 hours ago on his fee. And so now we're gonna have to go back and talk about how those 3 things, those 3 bids or estimates factor, not with another change.
On that, I also sent everybody the Tree of Paradise information that's surrounded here and there, so we need to consider that too on the payment of the
It's moved to
cleanup.
the 21st.
Right, but I don't wanna bring it up the 21st. So just, it's in your email. It's a noxious weed getting tracked by the federal government.
So we're gonna skip over 4 for right now and move to 5 and 6, and I'm gonna turn this over to Aaron.
All right, I will share my screen. So, council, you should have received, let's see if it did it. Oh, one second. Window. Okay. So, council, you should have received, the big, big document, Excel document, printout. We'll start with the fiscal year 2024 draft amended budget. So because we have an increase in revenue and expenditures, we do need to go through the amended budget process. So you've got the real detailed version, which shows last year's actuals, this year's year-to-date, and the projected amended budget. And again, very draft form, so while we have to present it today and go over it today, we have until June 22nd to finalize our budgets. Ours will probably be finalized before then, but we want to get ahead of it. So please take this as this is a draft. It can be changed. And then we also do have to have public hearings, which is number 6. We'll talk about that. So I wanted to go over kind of the high level. Fiscal year 2024, a big part of municipal budgeting is ensuring that the budget is, are you seeing, is that what you guys are
That's
seeing?
what we're seeing.
That's what you're seeing? Oh dear, okay. I'll go back to this then, since it won't do the presentation mode. So in municipal management, money in must equal money out. We can move money over year to year. If we have a surplus, you can borrow from other years, but there is a legal way to put it in your budget. So from a high level, the general fund revenues and expenditures are increasing versus our approved budget from June of last year. So we're up at 618. Now, you see the roads revenue and roads expenditures, those are nested in that $618,000, sorry, $618,000. The way we track our roads is a little different from other folks, but the general fund, that total dollar amount is up at top. Then we needed to add a special revenue fund to account for the CCC building, and so that's what you see down below. With the 449,000. So I'll get into each of those a little bit more. Some highlights. So we increased the amended revenues to a projected $618,596. The majority of this was from the UDOT matching funds for the airport maintenance, We thought that that was going to, the work was gonna take place and be paid out last fiscal year, but it did not occur that way. The work continued on, and actually the bulk of the work occurred after July 1st. So the revenue coming in from the state, those matching funds, came in this fiscal year. So that's a huge part of why that projected number is increasing so much. We also did see an increase in tax revenues based on what we're seeing right now year to date. That would include a projected overall increase in tax revenues of $32,000 due to strong resort taxes, increased taxes of what we projected versus actuals. And that's good. So typically how we do our budgets at this level is we want to be conservative in how much money we think we're bringing in, and we want to be conservative on the flip side of how much money we think we're going to be spending. So that was a good budget, but of course we had some increases, so that's good. We also saw an increase in our interest earned in PTIF, since there's quite a lot of money in there. So total PTIF interest is now projected by the end of the year to be at $39,000. And in part, that is due to the state economic development grant that was placed in there recently. So that $400,000 will continue to earn interest over the next few months. I did remove the miscellaneous revenue sources. So in prior years, we can kind of had some interesting, miscellaneous things in there, but you'll see the miscellaneous revenues are completely removed, and you'll see that they're removed for next fiscal year as well. So to have a balanced budget, more money in, we did have more money going out. Again, the airport maintenance project is the primary source of those increased expenses. Legal fees are also increased, so we had started the year projecting $25,000 in legal fees. Our projections are by the end of this fiscal year, we will have accumulated about $70,000 in legal fees. The renovation project, we talked about this, it was approved. In addition to the grant monies we received via ARPA, we did contribute some money from our general fund to finish the renovations. That is not all encompassed in that $24,000. That also came from increased money from the insurance. We talked about that as well. The roads department did not spend much money this year, so most of their money, I'm going to use the term roll over, but it's going to roll over into next year. They'll be able to use that money next year. And if you look at the total parks category, if you don't include the airport, the parks area actually is using less money than what we projected. So we're dropping the budget from $95,000 down to $81,000. Special revenue fund, so this is kind of new to us, but it's important that we keep this money separate so we can track everything that goes on with this project. When we started the year, we had no idea if we were going to be receiving grants or not, and so this area has significantly increased in how we're doing budgeting. So for this fiscal year, we need to track the state economic grant money that came in. So that came into this, it will come into the special revenue account, but it is just going to roll into next year. We will not be spending any of that money. So when you look at how that's all going in and going out, I am projecting that a small portion of the EPA grant will be spent hopefully in the next 2 months, including the quality assurance project plan. We need to do some signage per our grant agreement. We'll draw a little bit of de minimis funding and then project manager wages. So very high level, I think this move, we can certainly, if folks have questions today, we can talk about it. We have a work session next week. There'll be a public hearing, and this is by far a draft, not a finalized budget. So questions about the high level overview or comments? Okay.
I just have one question on, well, never mind, it's more on the 2025.
Okay. Good. All right, so moving into our drafted tentative budget for next year. Again, as general principle, we try to have a very conservative budget. So in the general fund, you'll see that decrease from 618 to 574. That's due to that airport project not being included. So not necessarily a drop in revenue, but just a drop in projects. The roads revenue you'll see as an increase just because that money is rolling over from last fiscal year. And then the big one at the bottom, projected, if we are on track to all of our grant deadlines and hopes and dreams, a projected $1.3 million in spend for that asset, for the CCC building. High-level general fund. Taxes, I usually kind of recommend that we keep just about the same. I haven't heard any real big red flags about the economy in our area that would indicate a major drop in taxes. So those are pretty much in line with what we've collected this fiscal year. Licensing and permitting staying just about the same. And then same for Class C roads. There is an increase in interest earnings for PTIF as we have quite a lot of money sitting in. And again, 5% on that over the course of a year is really big. The actual interest earned would be closer to 60,000. I have it at 45 because the hope is we're spending some of that money for the CCC building. So I have removed the miscellaneous revenue since we want to categorize all of it. And then when I was talking about rolling over funds, that's called appropriated or appropriating your fund balance. So I am recommending from our past surpluses that we will appropriate and again, this is all going to change as we massage and get this in its final form, but I am recommending that we move $26,000 from prior year surpluses to support the budget for this coming fiscal year. Another thing to note, so through the EPA, we get a de minimis, which can cover just kind of, I shouldn't say anything, it covers smaller expenses, but we specifically are able to use it to cover the utility costs of the CCC building, and I'm recommending that we take $10,000 from the CCC budget, de minimis, move it here to cover the costs, our costs, the town's percentage of the utilities for next fiscal year. Other highlights for expenses, I'm recommending that we have a bookkeeper and a note taker. So I have some tentative numbers for that. And then also that would be an increase in funding for our employer contributions to pay federal and state tax withholdings. So you'll see an increase on those numbers. It was weird writing this next bullet point, but we can talk about that when we get to the public hearing point. But I don't know, Ann, can I turn that over to you? Because it's weird to talk about for myself.
Absolutely. So in order to give town manager an increase, we have to take it through the public hearing process. We don't have to do that with other employees, but we do with Erin, specifically the town manager's position. This increase that I'm recommending, and I approached Erin about it a couple of months ago. She was very reluctant, I might add. This is me pushing because Erin, as the town manager, has fully been working on this budget, working on grants. The skill set that she's brought is much higher than $60,000. I understand what people's concern might be that if we increase it to 70 and Erin were to leave, that our next round of candidates would be expecting the same. There's a range, and it's based on qualification and experience. And so it's not like you would hire me to do this job at $70,000. It would be based on qualifications, and Erin has brought what I think is a very strong set of skills to, particularly to the budget stuff and the dollars of how to do this. So that's what I'm suggesting. I would actually have gone higher, but the budget probably can't support more than this increase. So with that being said, back to you.
Thank
Sort of.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and the EPA grants and the grant writing and the grant watching, I mean, that's huge too, but she's also taking on.
Bringing in all those dollars is really,
It was a good year last year. We'll see if we can we'll keep it up. And yeah, as Ann said, so just in the legislative change this year, now town manager, the high-level executive, as well as like our town attorney, if there was a salary or a bonus, or a pre-approved bonus, that has to go through public hearing process. Speaking of lawyers, we are projecting an increase in legal fees to $87,000. Based on the current progression of our, it's not even pending litigation, our litigation, based on the current progression of our litigation, all of that will go to trial in this next fiscal year, and so that's where we're at on that. I do have an expense from our general fund to the CCC building of currently only $17,000. Because so much of the CCC is being funded through grants, I'm not seeing the need to do more. However, as we progress next year, I think it's possible that we might need to amend a budget to have more money come out of the general fund or capital projects, and we can talk about that. So that's there. For roads, like I said, not much happened with roads this year. However, that leaves him a very nice, leaves the roads department a very nice amount to work with next year. And Michael Havokin did bring forward his projections. I did not make these up. And these are from Michael Havokin, and includes money for routine road maintenance, professional engineering services, which he's been asking for years now. And now he's got money to spend to do it. Capital improvements planning, and then subsequent, hopefully, being able to implement those. And then this is the final year of the repayment to the general fund. So there was, and again, the fund is nested in our general fund, but to make everything equal, that $10,926, this is the final year that will be repaid. He's got some road signs, and then miscellaneous or discretionary funds that would be added to a specific category once he figures out where those will go. And as a reminder, there are revenues directly related to roads, so that includes the Class C road allotment, San Juan County matching funds as available. Those are not projected as revenues right now, but could be amended and added later. Gravel pit tax, and then interest earned on the roads portion of the PTIF fund, and general roads checking. All right, 1.3 million for the special revenue fund. Again, most of this is coming from EPA, state, some UDB and Town of Bluff contributions, as well as the Cultural Capital Grant, and I've listed the projects that hopefully will be underway in this coming fiscal year. So this, again, takes us the whole way up to June 1st of next year. So quite a lot of big stuff that we could move into. I think this is an aggressive timeline, but it was important to include it in the budget so we don't have to run back and amend it right away. This is something that all of us, as well as the project manager, would want to keep a really close eye on. All right, that is the end of, I should have another question slide. That's the end of my highlights for fiscal year 2025. Are there any questions or comments right off the bat?
No, I think for me it leaves a lot of ground to think about.
Yeah.
Like how we fine tune it, because this is the tentative budget that has to be presented, the one that we have to look at and kind of mull over. And then we'll have a work session next week, but in addition to approving the tentative budget, we have to set the public hearing date. And we have to do that tonight, or today as well. I keep saying tonight. I guess my night could start at 4 o'clock.
It's
but
5 o'clock.
It's fine.
It's 5 o'clock. So, does anyone have questions for Aaron or for me or for Linda about the budget?
I will put these on the website, and just, again, to the public, these are drafts. These are not finalized. It'll say big draft across the top. The council received these, was it Sunday night at like 11 p.m. or something? So, no, yesterday late.
Yes,
Monday.
So, yeah, so we'll put them on the website, so folks can start mulling them over before public hearing.
Right, and so Aaron and I looked at the calendar, and what we're looking at is the 21st, of May
21st.
for the public hearing on the amended 2024 budget, the 2025 fiscal year budget, the manager's salary increase, and capital improvement projects. So there'll be 4 separate hearings on the same day. And we,
Who's gonna whip them out?
yep, so we've set it like at 4:05, 4:20, dot, 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 you know, it's boom, 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 boom. So the work session will be really important that we try to cover as many questions as possible so that we can get the 2 budgets, particularly in the capital improvement, ready for the public hearing. So does anyone have questions at this point?
I do have a question, and it's back to this capital improvements. We talked about it the last meeting. So if we put that in every year, where does it show up? Where did?
It's not in there yet.
Okay.
No, so I
Okay.
haven't finalized, well, I shouldn't say, you have not finalized anything, and I didn't want to make any assumptions as to what projects you wanted to address next fiscal year. But
what
it'll
about-
show up, at the end, like, under, probably like at the end of the expenses
Okay,
area.
but on the, overall thing that shows the amount that's coming in, the amount that's going out, wouldn't that show the capital improvement projects that are already in there?
The only
Because
one that I could find was the $20,000 one on green space, and open space.
It wasn't 30,000?
No, it was 20. It was resolution number 33.
But then we don't have to put some in every year?
No,
That hasn't been a, okay.
no, you don't. But what we'd like to do is get on track for reviewing it every year and doing something affirmative every year, which is why in the work session, we'll go through, look at all the list of projects that we talked about. And if you use the state budget forms, there is actually a form that kind of nested on the state budget forms for capital improvement projects.
Okay.
So it's part of the big picture, like, we've got X amount of dollars in the PTIF, how do we want to spend it?
Mhm.
And then that will be in the final budget.
Yeah, and on years, so, you know, we've got a lot of money in PTIF right now, so you as council are able to determine if any of that should move over into capital projects, which it should. But then you can choose what is going to, again, I'll use the word rollover because it's the most one, you know, it's the one that kind of makes the most sense. But, you know, that other money can roll over. If you have a surplus, it rolls over. You can use it when you have a deficit. So you probably don't want to use everything in PTIF for capital projects. I wouldn't do that. But, you know, we have the ability to set aside some of the PTIF and specifically earmark it for capital projects. And then, yes, it would be it would be an edit in these drafts, and it will show up as its own line item and get calculated.
Because it's nice to know, like, of the general fund, what's
Yeah.
already committed to
Yes.
something or another. And that's the thing with those prior commitments of the money that we got, it's nice to recognize that the community wanted that at some point, those different projects, but if we can take that into account in the ones that we're funding now, I think that, and these ones that we're funding now are what came up in the strategic planning and the general plan.
And so you'll see them not only in the like financials, but then there will be like a report, very short for us, but there will be like a report that we can point to each year and say,
Yeah,
this was
okay.
what.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So any specific questions, comments?
May 21st, public show up.
Is that the date you're looking at?
Yes, May 21st. And then we'd have, our work session is next week, and this will be the majority of the work session. And I think realistically, we should try to plan for 2 hours. And if we need to back it up to 3:30 to 5:30, we probably should do that.
On the 21st.
On the 20, no, not on the
the
work
14th.
session,
On the
on the work
14th.
session, which is the 14th.
Right, so the 14th is the work session, but not the hearing.
No, the 21st is the public hearing.
21st will be the hearing.
You don't want
Okay.
to have the public hearing before we've kind of got that's a terrible sentence, before we have something that looks a little more solid. Aaron's done a great job. These numbers were beyond my ability to think about, so
Mhm.
I think we just need to spend the time between now and the work session and line up our questions so we can make good use of the time.
And I really would recommend, I mean, you've got the full, I would go through line by line. I really would. It would really help, so. Thank you.
So we need to approve, we have to adopt, I have to use the right word, adopt the
Proposed budget?
tentative budget, yeah. So that it becomes a working document.
I motion that we adopt the tentative 2025 budget as presented.
Second.
Any further comment or discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Right.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then, because Aaron and I were trying to figure out these dates, the public notice for the public hearing should run in the San Juan Record. You should be seeing it. And we had discussed run it all as one big notice or kind of split it into four. And we ended up with doing 4 separate notices because there's 4 separate hearings that we have to do. Open and close, open and close, open and close, open and close.
I think I've got them for 410, 425, 440, and 455.
Okay.
So. And it goes amended budget, tentative budget, capital projects,
Salary.
salary.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Me.
Okay, thank you.
it's 5:16. Some of these may need to move a little bit depending on how tight people's schedules are, but let's get to the number 4. Recommendation and discussion vote on the project manager for the Environmental Protection Agency grant. The interviewing was today.
You want me to go? Yeah, we just got done with the interviews right before we came over here. They were 2 great interviews, but because of that, things weren't as apparent, straightforward to us as we had thought. So, and we only had like 20 minutes to discuss after the interview before coming over here, so we don't have a recommendation to give. But I believe Aaron's plan is to circle back with me in a couple of days and then circle back with Davis on Friday and get that final recommendation.
Okay, so I don't think we can afford to wait to the 21st to vote. So I've thought about this because this is what I fear. I would propose that we start at 3 o'clock and have a meeting at 3 on the 14th. I call a meeting, I post it, we have the agenda item discuss and vote on the project manager. This is something we need to have in place. I don't think it can wait to the 21st, and then we're trying to push 4 public hearings into that time slot. Or if people would prefer, that would be one suggestion, then go into the work session. Or we could pick another time next week to break it up a little bit, to have the meeting, special meeting, and then have the work session on the on the 14th. So I will leave it.
And for option 1, it's fine with me, just coming in
That
early
works
and
for
knocking
me
it out.
as
it's
well.
fine.
I don't think it's gonna take a lot of time.
So do 3 o'clock with the meeting. I also anticipate we could be needing to have a few minutes on a strategy session with our attorney. So that makes me feel a little bit better that we can all Lou, are you okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, so 3 o'clock, and then, the work session at 3:30. And if we have to squeeze kind of some of this in, we'll just have to do it. Okay.
And is that something that if there's not a solid consensus with the interviewing people and they want to talk about it, it'd be a closed session, I assume?
Absolutely not. Everything we do with hiring is here in this room.
Hiring is, it's after they become an employee that you can.
If you have mental and physical health issues to talk about, but the hiring process itself has to be done in the open public meeting.
I bet we'll have consensus. It was just
Too quick,
close.
too quick a turnaround. No, I'm glad two people showed up and are interested in that it's not an obvious choice. I think
Yeah, no,
that's
they,
great.
Yeah.
they were really good interviews, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
just,
great.
we're weighing
That's awesome.
two very separate
No, that's awesome.
directions, I think.
Mhm.
And,
That's awesome.
and just so, it was you, Aaron, Britt, and Davis Philfreth from UDB.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we have,
I have a question. Did you need to have a vote on the amended 2024 budget?
no, we'll
Okay.
do that after the public hearing. We have to have the public hearing
On
first.
it first?
On it
and then-
first,
okay.
yeah.
But you don't
thanks-
need it, any? okay.
No,
All right.
no, we already have a budget. This is just
Just
amending the
amending
budget that we
it.
already voted on.
Sure.
But thank you for asking.
Okay.
So, capital improvements plan, I think we can just push to the work session.
Work session, please.
And again, what I'll try to do is just send out, Aaron and I can talk about this, just send out kind of a generic list of what we'd all put together so that everybody can think and start prioritizing. Then let's move to number 8, planning and zoning update. Lou?
So they had a meeting May 1st, it was the only one since the last time we met. And they sent over, they've been working on forms, kind of updating forms to make sure they ask for the information that they need and so on, just kind of tweaking things that have been in the process. So the forms that they sent over to our manager for the website and whatnot is the agenda request, land partition, planning and zoning recommendations to town council, variance requests, zoning amendments, and the LUC, the land use clearance and the site plan are forthcoming, and so is the sign application. Once, now that it's passed, then they can make their sign application form fit the ordinance. They confirm that if it's something smaller than 200 square feet, then there's no land use clearance needed per the advice of our attorney, as long as it meets the setbacks and other requirements of structures. So just because it's small doesn't mean you can crowd it up against the fence or something. It's, if it's on the ground, it still has to comply, but you don't have to go through all the land use clearances, according to our ordinance. There's an RV ordinance work session, May 17th from 9 to 11. They did make a note that town council had requested that they work on the RV ordinance, which I missed along the way if we talked about it, but they're under the assumption that the town council wants them to push that one forward. Then in the other comments, there were concerns brought to planning and zoning about the beak hooking up RV spaces, and they said it wasn't their thing, it's just a business license change. And then there were some dark sky compliance on a couple of signs in town that they had also been approached on, and they didn't take any action on any of those, because they're all out of their realm. And any questions, because that was all that,
So there hasn't been a business license change, other than changing it from Friends of Cedar Mesa to Bears Ears Partnership.
okay, well, that was, just suggested that maybe that was what the change was. It wasn't a land use clearance or, anything they were.
For the compliance, are they forwarding comments that they're receiving or just advising people to reach out to town for compliance? issues, enforcement issues,
Yeah,
just
I'm
use
not
the word
sure what-
enforcement issues.
Not sure what they're doing with, I thought they were forwarding them, but you haven't
I,
seen those.
I haven't, it doesn't mean,
No,
can
that's a
or
good
off the-
question to.
yeah,
we can-
I just recommend, I mean, I know they're
Okay.
usually pretty good about
Yeah.
telling us about enforcement issues, but just, yeah, we'll circle back.
And then what about the RV ordinance? Is that something that we had decided they should put their time and effort into working on?
I specifically requested it.
Oh, you did?
I d-
Okay, okay.
I think with the season popping up again, we're seeing more and more trailers being wedged into small places, and I think that if we're going to be serious about making sure that people have adequate septic and space, and we're not just crowding everybody in. And as we can all see how long it's taken us to move it from planning and zoning to a passed sign ordinance. So I'm trying to be a little more proactive on things that are sitting for them and for myself. Anything else on the planning and zoning? I'll make this quick. I met with Mac McDonald last Friday, and it was a good meeting, as it always is with Mac. So the most important one, because we needed to know this before we started working on the 2025 budget, is what's coming down from San Juan County in terms of the permitting and inspection part on buildings. And what Mac told me was that we will not be issuing the permit. They will continue to issue it. The only question on the permit is whether we should collect the fee here when they do the land use clearance and send the land use clearance and the money to San Juan County, because that will help San Juan County know the land use clearance was given and that somebody's going to be getting their permit, and then they can begin tracking it. And that's to avoid what we've got right now, which is people getting their land use clearance and not getting the permit and not doing the inspections. So the second piece to that is then San Juan County will continue to do the inspections. As Mac pointed out, they have a person on their staff who now is fully certified to do inspections. They have a second person working on getting his certification. They have a backup agreement with Blanding to do inspections, because May 1st, the law changed so that if you are building and you request an inspection and the inspector can't get there within 3 business days, then you as the developer, builder, owner have the right to find your own inspector. And if the county has a list, then they have to go through that list before they get your buddy to do the inspection and blow it off. And that's the rationale that the builders were using when they pressured the legislature to get this in place. There's a computer program that we'll be using in hopefully 3 to 4 months, where when land use clearance is approved and either we collect the money or the county collects the money and the permit is issued, then we'll be able to look in the computer where that building is at. Was inspection A done, B done, C done? What were the results? What was paid, what wasn't paid? So that we don't lose track of building inspections or permits. And that was really the most important piece, so we didn't have to put anything. The concern that we all had was we'd have to hire somebody to do inspections, we'd have to get a program or try to pay for a program. All of the initial information that was laid out was marginally accurate. We'll be getting an MOU at some point, because Monticello is in the same situation we are, so that's how we're going to do it. And certainly when we get that MOU, we can talk about it, and if we don't like it, we can figure it out. And the second was, we're still on track for a discussion of taking on the cemetery functions. In the cemetery, MAC is having the cemetery surveyed for plots so that they can begin plugging in the names into the plots, so that when things are transferred over to us sometime in the next whatever, we've got kind of a good history to go on. So I think that's a line item in the budget that Aaron put in.
It's currently under the capital improvements, but it isn't under the budget until we finalize.
So it's kind of, you know, one of those things we need to be talking about. I told Mac, it would be nice to wrap it up before December closes out for the calendar year, just to move one big project off. The other was a discussion about EMS. Mac said that there is a law that requires municipalities to pay for their 911 calls. I found the law he was talking about was passed in 2021. I'm in the process of culling through it. But there are a number of options that we have. The one that, to me, makes a little bit of sense is since our EMS really services, their runs are primarily south and across, that we continue having discussions with UNHS to think about moving our service in with them. And San Juan County, Mac at least is willing, and he brought it up, he is willing to have the discussion about a transfer of the building and equipment to the town, and how that would be paid for would be we'd get a value for what we were getting, an assigned value, and then for every run that's made, we'd work off that value. So there's no cash that exchanges hands. It does pose the problem, once again, that if you take in an asset, it's gonna bump you into a higher audit zone. But I think we're gonna go there anyway.
We're already there.
Yeah, so nothing was, there were no decisions made, just trying to keep the conversations moving.
And is that EMS and fire, or just EMS?
Right now, it's just EMS, but fire was raised because I think he was referring to David Gallegos, where the focus is much more on the wildland fire, and that moving these services to the municipalities would probably be better. But again, it's a big discussion and it requires, probably doing some more discussion with UNHS to see how it would work. Certainly getting the county commissioners on board with a plan, which could be interesting. Any questions? Any other in the others?
Are you moving to?
Am I moving 10? I bet I have an old agenda.
Was our discussion with
Kiosk.
Oh, yes.
the
I
Historic
do.
Preservation Association?
Do you want to take that, Jen?
So, Tina Krutsky and Debbie Westfall met with Ann and I last week to present a kiosk that they would like to place at West Park that will contain, it was a kiosk that was previously, actually there are two kiosks. The one that they more specifically talked about was the larger of the two kiosks that they would like to place at West Park. They would like to put an official river trail map on one side, and then there were discussions of opening up the other side of the kiosk for possible, for different town use and announcements types of things. So that was their request, was that we put that there. The second kiosk, I'm still kind of confused about, even though that's why they said that. I was included in the meeting, but I'm still kind of confused about where it is that they're wanting to place the second smaller kiosk.
So I saw Debbie Westfall and Tina Krutsky measuring the fence of the CCC for a possible kiosk parking lot. And after first of all, I think everyone knows my opinion, it cannot go there, but whatever. They made the decision not to ask.
That it can't go there, but I can't
And so-
remember where they proposed that it got put.
At Bluff Gardens.
Oh, that's right,
Over by
that's right,
where the
okay.
trail
Yeah,
kicks off
that's right,
there.
okay.
And I want to put so what we need to do is vote whether they can put the kiosk on West Park. But when they say an official map, it's not the town's map, it's the Bluff.
River Trail,
City-
historic, yeah.
Yeah, Bluff City Historic Preservation map,
Map.
what they view as the Bluff River Trail. It's not a map that the town is saying is the map. We're staying,
Right.
and I think we've agreed that is not our asset, it's not our project. But having that there will draw people to a parking lot area.
Right.
So, I think I sent the picture of the kiosk out to
Yes, you
everybody.
did.
Any motion on that?
Are they paying for the installation, or are we paying for the
No,
installation?
they're doing everything. We're doing nothing. We're providing space, and probably we need to work with them on where that's placed. But I kind of envisioning by that, where the opening is going into West Park, somewhere in there.
And that larger kiosk has like a little seat and has a, double-sided, I haven't seen it in person, but the drawings. So and it has a little bit of a shade thing there that would, somebody might take advantage of.
8 feet tall, 9 feet wide.
West Park gets a fair amount of traffic because people are charging the charging station and coming over,
Mhm.
and there's shade, but there's not a lot of it. I think it would be really nice, a nice addition to that park. So, any motions on that?
I motion to approve Bluff City Historic Preservation Association's request to place kiosk at West Park.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Then, back to the other. Is there any other? All right, it is 5:35 PM.
A motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Right.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. All right, I'm turning the recorder off.